Hey, need a boost without the crash? Head over to dubby.gg, that's dubby.gg, for all your energy drink needs. No sugar, no fillers, just clean focus and serious flavor. And here's the kicker. Use the code REALREAL, REALREEL, at checkout and score 10% off your order. That's REALREAL, one word, for 10% off at dubby.gg. Fuel up, stay sharp, keep it real. Looking for chills that crawl up your spine and reviews that cut deeper than a butcher's blade? Welcome to Real Talk Horror Edition, where classic slashers, indie creepers, and cult nightmares are dissected with a bloody passion. Whether you're into slow burns or splatterfests, we've got the guts, the gore, and the geek out. So dim the lights, press play, and let your darkest curiosities run wild. Real Talk Horror Edition, where horror lives and breathes. Real horror, real talk. Available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Underneath the sun, gleam, talking reels and all their schemes, dusty scenes and dreams unfold.
Hey there, film nerds, pop culture junkies, and anyone who's ever quoted a movie at just the wrong time. Welcome to the new Real Talk. This is the show where we don't just talk about entertainment, we dissect it, we laugh at it, we celebrate it, and sometimes roast it mercilessly. I'm your host, Josh, and if you've been riding with me for a while, welcome back. And if you're brand new, well, buckle up, because it's going to get delightfully chaotic in here. Today's episode is a little different. It's a reset, a reintro, a reimagining, a reboot, all the things they do in Hollywood. Think of this as our pilot episode 2.0. And here's the big news. I'm no longer riding this horse alone. That's right, Real Talk is now a duo, and join me on this wild ride is someone I've been wanting to bring on for a very long time. My best friend, my brother, my fellow movie maniac, Dave. Now, if you're asking who's Dave, you'll find out real quick. He's sharp, he's funny, he has some takes that might make you gasp, groan, or hit pause just to scream into the void. But hey, that's what makes this whole thing fun. Today's episode, we're keeping it casual. No deep dive, no film analysis, just some riffing, some storytelling, and some shared movie memory. We're going to talk about how our love of film was formed, those early cinema moments that made us fall in love with storytelling, soundtracks, practical effects, and probably some movies we shouldn't have watched as kids. You know how that goes. We'll talk about where this show is headed, maybe some future topics, some series ideas, maybe even some hot takes we're just itching to unleash. Spoiler, I've been itching to do a movie list of 10 movies that just should have ended about 10 minutes sooner. I wanted to do that for a long time, so whether you're here for film facts, fandom, or just some fun, and yes, we will absolutely make fun of everything we love, Real Talk is back, and better than ever. Let's get into it right now. All right, welcome back to Real Talk. I'm your host, Josh, alongside our newest co-host, Dave. Say hi, Dave.
Hey, everybody. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. It's his long-time listener, first-time caller, or whatever you would normally say. Something
I
like
love
that.
it. I love it.
I thought of that this morning,
because
so
we
that's
got
not
those
really
stacks of wax on wax ready to play all the hits.
Exactly.
So to get this started, so Dave and I are not really talk about us kind of people. So we want to talk about the movies. We want to get into the TV, entertainment, that kind of thing. So talking about ourselves is always where you're going to find us struggle a little bit more to get personal. But to introduce Dave, I've just got 5 questions. So let's do like a little mini interview. So Dave, first, what's your background and how did you end up co-hosting with me? basically our
So-
history.
Yeah, I mean, it just like everybody else, I've been a huge fan of films and movies most of my life. I spent a lot of my younger years working. You and I met at Blockbuster, as a matter of fact.
Yep. We did.
Which is I don't know how many people I even remember Blockbuster, but that was one of my favorite jobs. Next to I worked at a movie theater. It was my very first job as an usher, cleaning them up, and saw a lot of free movies. But I fell in love with everything about it. It wasn't fast food. It wasn't the same kind of service, it felt like. And I absolutely loved the product, and I can stand behind it. Even a bad movie is better than no movie. But anyways, you and I met at a Blockbuster back in, I don't know, 110, 120 years ago, something like that, a long time ago.
Right around there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It had to be 98 or 99, something.
Were there even DVDs out?
We were still, new release shelf still had VHS and DVD. We had.
Yeah, so that's how old it is.
Rollover.
It's back in the beta days.
The battle between the titans.
You and I met there, and then just over many years, we cultivated a friendship and became more like a brotherhood between us. And then we both realized we have some of the same kind of interests and ambitions. So there was a point where, you and I even tried making some independent film. We tried to shoot some short films, which I do miss doing. Bought equipment, had a lot of discussions. We were on weekly phone calls about it. Now my under ambition level and your overachiever level should have balanced out much better, but we didn't really pull much through. I think life kind of stopped us there, but I still love the process. And I always said the same thing, which is I'd rather be working in film or making films and making no money than doing a job I hate and making a ton of money, because it's the one thing I truly enjoy. So realistically, I've been such a fan of so many different types of films and so many things for so many years that it constantly surprises me, the stuff that I didn't know existed, or the stuff I haven't seen that I'm like, that's amazing, or stuff that I watched again with a new light years later.
Sure.
So you and I met there, and we've just kind of, been close and been friends ever since, even though we're separated by quite a distance. But
so Dave and I live about 11, 12 hours apart, driving distance. It is what it is. It sucks for us, but we do what we have to make our lives work. So like Dave was saying, we've been together forever. And anyone who's listened to this show knows that my love for movies and the way I talk about movies comes more from a writer's perspective. So I always talk about how Goonies touched my life because it was kids just like me who were loud like me, who were obnoxious like me, they talked like me, all of those things like I was. And that's kind of what made me fall in love with this idea of film. But Dave, you have a story about how Casino changed your views on film. You saw something on a more production side. So tell us about your love.
It was, when I was younger, of course, like simpler movies like Terminator 2 and things were my favorite films. I thought they were just amazing, because that's what you like as a 10, 12-year-old kid.
Sure.
But I actually was managing a Hollywood video out in North Carolina many years ago, and I finally sat down and watched Casino, and it was the first time I remember watching a film and noticing the whole world that exists behind what you're seeing on the screen. It was something as simple as the choice of the lighting options, the color tone, all of those kind of things. It was so intentional, and it kind of just clicked me into the idea that it's not just what you're seeing, it's the hundreds of people behind the scenes who are doing it, all being orchestrated by one person. And so since I'm a control freak, that would be naturally, I wanted to be that person controlling all of that. But that was the movie that opened my eyes. Is it the best movie? No, it's not even the best Martin Scorsese movie, but it is the one that made me realize how amazing this whole film industry is and what they can do, the magic they create with sound and light, that kind of a thing.
And you said something there that I think is important. that Casino, it made you see something, you recognize something in it, but it's not the best movie. I think we both agree probably that Citizen Kane is the closest to perfect a film has ever been, but it would not make either
What's
of our favorite.
What's it called?
Citizen Kane, right? But it would never make
Citizen
either
Ruth.
of
You're
our.
talking Citizen Ruth, right?
Oh yeah, of course. With Laura Dern.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, but I think we both agree that Citizen Kane is probably close to a perfect film, and we understand why it's the greatest movie ever, but it's never going to be on our favorite movie list. There's something different about a favorite movie. A favorite movie touches you in a way that Casino touched Dave. Goonies touches me. For me, my favorite movie, if someone asks, Sunset Boulevard. That showed me something because it showed the dark side of Hollywood. I love that seedy side of Hollywood, that Dashiell Hammett, just grimy noir style.
Is it Dashiell or Dashiell? Now, I asked this because Maltese Falcon was on TCM and they kept pronouncing it Dashiell, and I was like, have I been mispronouncing his name this entire time?
I read Maltese. See, and Dashiell Hammett is the way when I went. So I have a master's degree in English, and it was pronounced Dashiell when I was in college.
All right. Well,
does it mean that it was right? Absolutely not.
Now, the weird thing is TCM had Robert Osborne, who might have actually spoken to Dashiell Hammett.
They were friends, so he wins.
Yeah, he might.
Robert Osborne, he wins.
He's passed a long time.
You just played an ace. You won.
You almost said trump card. Don't say that. But yeah, no, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just it blew my mind that I didn't know that.
Yeah, a thing like Casino, a thing like Goonies. The movies that touch us aren't always perfect. They're not always the quote unquote best movies, but they speak to us. I think
they're usually good movies. They're usually considered good movies. They might not be for everybody. Like it might be violent for some people, or it might be gross, or it might be whatever it is, but it could still have an effect on you. But pretty much everybody would say it's not a bad movie. You know,
you're not going to have somebody come up to you and say Going Overboard starring Billy Zane and Adam Sandler, the greatest movie ever.
What's the boat trip? Isn't that what you talked about the other day? Boat trip with Cuba?
Boat trip, Cuba Gooding.
And Horatio Sands? Is that right?
How do we make this gay cruise movie better? Academy Award winner Cuba Gooding Jr.
and Horatio
with his
Sands.
best friend Horatio Sands. Exactly.
You know.
So speaking of terrible movies, Dave, if you could only watch one genre of the big genres, one genre for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Good or terrible? Because you brought this category in by saying terrible movies, and so I immediately went to like 80s USA Up All Night, Rhonda Shear, Gilbert Gottfried.
Would you prefer to sit and watch guilty pleasures all the time, or
no,
be stuck with drama?
I don't consider them guilty pleasures. I like watching a movie like that in the sense that it's fun to make fun of how bad it is.
Absolutely.
You know, so there's that. But if I can only watch one genre, it would probably be it's terrible to say, but like heist movies. I love them.
Heist, yeah.
I love watching movies. I don't like necessarily watching the whole put the crew together setup. Sometimes that's okay. Right. But I love watching the intricate planning and the things that they do to pull something off, you know, like.
So you're a big fan of Tower Heist with Ben Stiller.
Yeah. I did like Tower Heist, actually. Maybe everybody else didn't. I like seeing Eddie. Terrible. I like seeing Eddie doing something again too. Yeah, so you know, there's that.
See, and for me, it would be I would fall into line with horror because horror can encompass drama, comedy. It just action. It just there's so much that can be into a horror film. But
right.
This one. I did not warn Dave that these questions were coming. So. What is your most controversial film?
6.5 inches. Oh, what? Sorry.
6.5. A man 6.5 or a woman 6.5?
A man 6.5.
6.5. What is your most controversial film or TV opinion? The one that gets people shaking their heads.
I don't like Game of Thrones. Not a fan.
I've never
I tried,
I've
but
never
maybe I didn't
watched
try
a minute.
enough. I mean, I didn't try enough.
I haven't
don't
even
mind the
watched a
nudity.
minute of it.
I don't mind the nudity, but
I can't do the red wedding.
Here's I didn't even get that far. Here's the problem I have, and again, this is just me because I realize it's got heavy production value. It seems like it's got a huge fan base on HBO. All these things I know. It's not just me, but I have an issue with not being fully immersed in the world of what I'm watching. So in the Ridley Scott version of where he and Blade Runner had the parking meters, the stickers on the parking meters, if you actually got to read them, they would all have authentic. So you prop people would be making all kinds of crap for him because that's full immersion. Whereas like Game of Thrones, I had trouble with the fact that it's this muddy, terrible place or whatever that these commoners and people are living in, but they're also clean. Like their horses and their dogs don't have mud and water all over their asses. My cat can't use the litter box without getting urine and litter all over it. But these things are running all around this mud pit, and they're coming out fine. And the white clothes and the clean teeth, and it's basically the reason spaghetti westerns opened the door to me for realizing that a western can be good with authenticity and immersion.
Sure.
Without being silly.
No, that's so. And for me, I'm my hot take, and I've shared this on our social media a few times. I do not like Lord of the Rings. I think they're overlong. I think they're bloated, and they do not capture me at all.
I never. Hand of Pearls.
Son of no, but they're not for me. But I also can recognize that you could absolutely love them, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And we don't have to share it, but I have a real problem more and more with CGI.
You just don't like New Zealand. Just say it. You hate New Zealand.
No,
you're against Flight of the Conchords. You don't like Brett. You don't like Jermaine.
That has to be one of the best TV shows. Just simple, couple seasons. Kristen Schaal and those guys. No, I loved you and I knew of Peter Jackson before there was such a thing as Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of Brain Dead or Dead Alive, depending on which version you got. I loved his practical effects, his over-the-top gore. I love that. I even loved his more subtle drama, Heavenly Creatures.
Yeah,
great movie. When he was given the keys to Fort Knox and said, make whatever you want, it just got too much for me.
Is it the CG and the special effects, or is it?
No, I think
I agree with you on the fact that it is too long-winded. And I think I actually, with intent, sat down and watched the three together over many weeks because they're long. But I decided if I was going to do it, and I'd already seen them before, that I was going to watch the extended cuts.
So I watched them.
Effing long. My wife, they're effing long, man.
Oh, stupid. My wife loves them. I saw all three in the theater, like opening week, second week type of thing. All three of the movies. And then we bought them on DVD, the stupid book of 8 DVDs per extended version. So I own all of it. And I tried watching them. I've seen them all twice. I saw the theater version and I saw the extended. And never do I feel like I want to revisit that world. It's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm not into that fantasy. Kind of fantasy, the dragons fantasy. I love a good Conan movie, a sword and sorcerer movie I can get behind.
That's a good way to describe
it. Maybe I'm not into dragons.
Right. Maybe you just hate hobbits. You know what it is? It's little people.
I hate
you ever watch those TLC shows with the little people? I know it. I get it. You hated Billy Barty. You kept turning UHF off because of Billy Barty popping up at the end. I know. I'm with you.
Now, if you want to talk to Billy Barty.
They smell like cabbage, right?
Was so funny. Yeah. Billy Barty. I loved Billy Barty. Anytime he would pop up in a lot of 70s TV shows that my dad used to watch. He would always pop up as just some random character in one episode. He was great.
I saw it. And he was in, gosh, this is why I'm terrible at these things. He was in a movie when he was a kid. I was very young, Billy Barty. I'll think of it. But anyways, keep going. UHF, right? Like,
that's, I love So UHF, I just was listening to an interview with Weird Al the other day, and he was talking about how depressed he got after UHF because it almost killed his career because it performed so poorly at the box office. Like he got into a depression because it's one of those things that we remember fondly because we were the right age for the humor. It just didn't blow up. And yeah, it was really sad to hear. But
The
that's
movie is
gonna
called
lead us-
Nothing Sacred, by the way. That's the movie. That's it from 1937.
Oh,
I watched
Baby
it
Bill.
on Baby Bill. Like he was a little kid. Like I had to look it up and say, is that Billy Barty? Where do I know that guy from?
Yeah. See, for me, he'll always be the High Aldwin in Willow.
Willow, yeah.
Speaking of Will, rest in peace, Val Kilmer. Love Val.
Yeah. You know, Val Kilmer was one of those, like so many that I didn't like for a lot of life, like a lot of time, because I was always thinking the Top Gun Val Kilmer. I think it was Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, where I realized, oh wait, there's more to him than Batman and his Top Gun character. But I love Real Genius. I still to this day watch Real Genius if it's on any time. So I don't know. The dichotomy of me, I guess.
Genius was so good.
Yeah,
Real
except for the
Genius,
kid.
so
What happened to that kid? Why did they in the 80s they would have these movies where their lead actor would be somebody who's, let's just say, not normal looking, and then they'd have them next to somebody who would become a big huge star, right? Like that was a pretty common. Look at Meatballs, for Christ's sake. Like what happened to that kid?
Chris Makepeace.
Yeah.
So Chris Makepeace, that's Real Genius. He did another movie a couple of years later called
And he's in
Vamp.
Apollo 13, right?
Is he?
From the kid. Wait, Chris Makepeace is from Meatballs, right?
Meatballs.
No, what the kid from
Real Genius?
From Real Genius. That kid's an adult actor, and they popped up, and you see his face and some stuff. But anyways, what was Chris Makepeace in?
Chris Makepeace was in this movie in the mid '80s called Vamp, with tall African American supermodel. I can't remember her name. I'm totally blanking on it, but it's this terrible like horror comedy. Yeah, and that's like, and then he just disappears. He's gone.
Is it kind of like Once Bitten, Jim Carrey's starring role?
Oh, Jim Carrey's big.
Is that called? That's called Once Bitten, right?
Once Bitten with with the original supermodel Lauren Hutton.
And what's his name? Cleavon.
Yeah, Cleavon Little.
My guy Cleavon, right? Like,
the sheriff. Do what he say. Do what he say. Where the white women at? Yeah. That was for a long time. That was the ringtone on my old phone. It was Cleavon Little saying, "Where the white women at?"
It might scare some people though, but that's okay.
I think that's why I did it. So I'm in here trying to look at the cast of Real Genius to figure out the dude's name, and the first name that pops up, Shuttle Pilot, played by Stacy Peralta.
Yeah.
Lords of the Dogtown. But that's your number one. That's your top credit.
The famous skater and skate company owner. Well, yeah. I think if I remember correctly, it's because they're probably going in order of appearance, right?
It probably was.
And I think he's. I actually did not know that was Stacy Peralta, but now you can play your 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon with him, and you can connect him to Val Kilmer.
Yeah, Gabriel Jarrett is his name.
That's right. I did know his name. I just couldn't think of it.
Small stuff. A lot of small. Just he
Apollo
shows
13.
up. It's a lot of place. Apollo 13. Yeah.
Yeah.
He plays GNC White, whoever that is.
Oh, he's a big character in there. He's integral to the story.
He's
in the background on a computer.
Next to Rance Howard.
Yeah.
Because Ron has to put his whole family in every movie.
In every single thing he does.
Everything.
That's what I would do too. Speaking of that, by the way.
Yes.
You have another question? I forget it. I watched a movie called Hot Stuff. Have you ever heard of it? So it's from 1979.
Oh.
Do you know it?
Not from 1979. Tell me more.
Okay, 1979. It's called Hot Stuff. I saw it as a kid. Apparently when HBO, and I had to do some diving to figure this out. But why did I see this movie so many times as a kid? It's because HBO had very little to program in the beginning, and so they played that movie, I guess, like 3 or 4 times a day, which is probably how I saw it.
2 or 3 weeks ago.
You're effing kidding me.
No,
Dom DeLuise?
Yeah, Dom DeLuise. They're running a pawn shop. It's
basically like cops, burglar, whatever, department cops, and they decide that they're sick of trying to catch people stealing. So they're like, why don't we just pretend we have a pawn shop and we'll get people to bring stolen stuff into us?
I heard about it because I was going down this weird rabbit hole of movies you wouldn't know were based on true stories.
And it's vaguely based on. Yeah, I know. I did some deep diving.
Yes. And so this one came up, and then I saw that it was streaming somewhere. So I'm like, okay, let's watch it. It's not good.
It's not good. And Jerry Reed does the music, which famously he's the co-star, and he also does music in Smokey and the Bandit. So,
Smokey and the Bandit. And he's Red Bo Yu in Waterboy for you Adam Sandler fans.
But Dom DeLuise directed it.
Yes, he did.
And cast his whole family. His wife's in it, and 3 of his kids.
2 of his kids play his kids. His other kid plays the boy with the dog or something.
Something like that. And then one of those kids, which I didn't know until I looked it up, I was like, what happened to these kids? Was one of the main people on the original 21 Jump Street. He's still a big actor.
Yeah,
what? How did I not know that was Dom DeLuise's kid?
Yeah,
whatever his name was, Peter DeLuise or something like that.
Peter, yeah. And then his youngest son got Disney Channel famous with that Wizards of Waverly Place. He was the dad on there.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Yeah. But anyways, speaking of family nepotism, putting people in your own film. But I'm okay like Scorsese with his mom. We get it. You have an Italian mother. Just kidding.
If I can't taste the spaghetti sauce, I don't want to see it. I'm a big Ozzie Davis fan too. And
he's it was really nice to see him as a younger version of him too. You know?
Yeah. And actually, watching that movie, I think that's where I started, because I knew Dom DeLuise and Burt Reynolds were like best friends. Burt Reynolds is who Dom DeLuise wanted for the Jerry Reed character.
I know.
Didn't work out his scheduling.
And hold on, there's another interview I found because I did some deep diving. Burt Reynolds not only was also working on a bigger and better film, but there was concern that it would become a Burt Reynolds movie, and Dom DeLuise was putting a lot of himself behind it, so he wanted it to be his movie. So with no malice to any, Burt Reynolds, I think, said you should do this, otherwise it's just going to become a movie with my name plastered all over.
Yeah,
so it's a little bit of all those things.
But it was because of that I find out that Burt, Dom, and Ozzie Davis was part of their crew. Like they were all buddies together, which is why years later, when Burt Reynolds comes back to episodic television and does the show Evening Shade, he brings Ozzie Davis with him to play his local townie best friend.
I did not. I've never seen the show. So speaking of television programs,
Michael Jeter was in it. Do you remember Michael Jeter?
He was
in Green Mile.
Right?
Green Mile.
I'm just kidding. That's Derek Jeter. Nothing. I said Derek Jeter. Same guy, right? But, played baseball. Was on Evening Shade. You know.
Same guy. So this brings us to the next question, which leads to what we've been talking about offline all week: is what do we want to bring to the show? What do we want this show to look like as a co-hosted duo show? What are some ideas?
I think the thing that we've been saying for 1,000 years now, well, 900 something years now, is that you and I end up in these tangent conversations. We have done it forever, to the point where our wives are annoyed. People usually start tuning us out, which is probably not a smart idea to think we can make that for public consumption. But not everybody has such a distaste for our ramblings. But
Right.
anyways, and I know we've always said that I think it would be there are enough people who hear our conversations and either interject or really just become spectators to it that I think we both thought, if nothing else, we should record this so we're forced to listen to what we're making everybody else listen to. So I think it's going to be bringing in the random insights. I think at one point I had said it should be more like a Mr. Wizard, because you seem to know every single piece of trivia off of IMDb that ever existed.
Probably.
And so I could be
it.
like, tell me more, Mr. Wizard. And then, you could throw in a couple of facts.
I wrote it using my IMDb Pro. I wrote all that. It's like my personal Wikipedia. I created
You're constantly updating it. Yeah. You're like, I'm super busy. So I think that I think as I've always said, I'd rather make something that entertains one person that we like doing than I guess than not. I guess that's not really a smart statement.
Yeah.
But I know my wife will get a kick out of it. So
Yeah. See,
at least the first episode.
So you do it so your wife will get a kick out of it. I do it so my wife will stop getting annoyed by me because she hates hearing about it.
My wife can't. My wife also can't hold the same conversation about film, and she tries. Don't get me wrong; she's great, but she does not have this deep geek dive shit in her that you and I seem to have. So, anyways, I think that I don't mind having records of things, anyways, because some of these conversations are fun. I don't know. I can't listen to myself, but if I ever figure out how to disguise my own voice, then it'd be easier. But
I'll tell you, it gets real annoying editing podcasts and listening to yourself say the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. That would be awful. It'd be like editing yourself in a movie or something, like your visual. Ugh, I don't want that.
Just watching me. But
well, let me ask you the same question then.
Yeah.
Just because, what do you want this show to be, and what do you want to bring from this?
So, for the last year and a half that I've been doing this show, it has been very, I'm honest, it's been very dry. It's just been me being a geek and going way too deep on movies.
I wasn't going to say anything, but yeah, okay.
Well, I do think there is absolutely a place for that, and we can still do episodes where we go deep on some movie or some director. I wanted to share our conversations, like you were saying. I want to get more of that conversational,
organic,
just the prototypical movie nerd conversation, where it's, because I can give you the textbook definition of what a movie is, and I can break it down and give you all the ins and outs of what makes it work, but that's really boring. But now when we're sitting here and all of a sudden we go down a rabbit hole where we're talking about a movie from the 70s and its connection to Burt Reynolds, that's where the fun lies, I think.
Which actually got from Real Genius to that,
somehow
it's a hard conversation to trail.
Somehow Chris Makepeace.
Who was the last person to talk about Chris Makepeace, for Christ's sake? I mean,
Chris Makepeace's mom.
His mom is like, oh yeah, I forgot about him. Was he in that movie with Bill Murray? He was in that movie with Bill Murray, right? My kid. I forgot.
He was. So over the last few days, I've been thinking about some different ideas for episodes, things that we could do just to make things fun. And some of these could be multiple episodes, they could be single episodes, they can be recurring things we do. But I think Dave and I, when we were talking offline, we had both liked the idea of every episode is its own thing, but it could be a recurring segment. So maybe this week is all about Dave watches a lot more TV than I do. I don't watch a lot of episodic television. So we may do an episode where Dave says, hey, there's this new great show. We just did it. If you follow us on the internet, I watched, what was it with the Jackal? I watched the Jackal, and then I watched the first episode.
Okay, yeah.
I watched the first episode of Jackal, and I watched the first episode of American Primeval. And then just because I was on a first episode kick, one of my followers said, hey, I'd love to get your feedback on the first episode of Pitt on HBO.
How was that, by the way?
So I watched all three, and I shared The Pitt it was the first time I think I've ever felt, outside of Scrubs, that I felt invested in a hospital-based show.
Yeah, that's what it looks
Generally,
like.
they don't speak to me, they don't work for me, but I loved the way that it's set up. Pitt, the whole first season, each episode is 1 hour in the life of the busiest ER in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
that works for me, and I like Noah Wiley. He's a good actor. I really like that.
He plays Steve Jobs in a movie that nobody watched with me, but yeah.
Silicon Valley?
Pirates of Silicon Valley. I love that movie. It's my favorite made-for-TV movie. It's a combination. It's movies and television. It's a TV and movie.
We got it all. TV and movie. Oh, and
The Pit looks good. Noah Wiley.
Yeah, Noah Wiley and Pitt. I really liked the first episode. The reason I didn't watch a second episode is because I do think my wife will enjoy that one. So I wanted to stop and not get too far in before I brought her on. And then I watched Jackal. And Jackal, for me, the reason I have such a hard time with TV shows is because I have a hard time investing 8 hours in something or whatever it ends up being. But Jackal, the way that it's done, the way that it's filmed, and I think I talked with you about this, is the shots, like the drone shots and the different things, the wide angle pull out, like the cityscapes and everything is so cinematic. It doesn't watch like a TV show.
Yeah.
It watches like a portion of a movie. It's very well done.
The golden age of television. Yeah.
Exactly. And forgive me, I do not remember her name, but the young lady that a lot of people were bagging on, I didn't dislike her as much as the internet was saying. I enjoyed her character in there just fine. And then for me, the other one that I watched was the first episode of American Primeval.
It's pretty brutal. I watched the first episode also. It's great.
Super brutal. And because of where I live in for those that don't know, I live in southern Idaho. There are a lot of Mormons here. So it's almost like it's regionally specific to where I live. But Lashana Lynch. I don't think she was bad in that.
No, I think she was good. I think she was good.
I think she's really good.
I watched all of that show, by the way, and it's great in the beginning, great in the last couple, a little dry in the middle, but still, I think a great show. I think everybody should watch it.
And I'm a couple episodes now because of you into Severance, and I'm about on episode 6 of Mythic Quest.
Severance of Mythic Quest dies in season 4. By the way, I'm just gonna go out and say that, and I think they know it. I think Rob's like, nah, I don't want to do this show anymore. Like the podcast, they had a podcast, and then they're like, I don't want to do it anymore. But Severance is one of those shows that if I didn't catch on, if I didn't watch it early, the hype around it would push me away from it. It would be, because everybody talking about it, I would be like,
everybody.
I can't be that good. Everybody's saying how it's amazing, but it is very, very good. I listen to the podcast, for Christ's sake, about each episode broken down by Adam Scott and Ben Stiller. Like, it's very, very good. Very good show.
Yeah, I really like uncomfortable films, and that really reads like it's very David Lynch, very Stanley Kubrick. It's all about being uncomfortable. Every scene is a unique type of uncomfortable. So and it's really
immersion. I like I said before, immersion is huge for me to buy into a story. If it's not fully immersive, then I want silly nonsense Jim Carrey in the 1990s. Like I want to know, this isn't real. There's no pretending it is. But if they're trying to sell me on something, then everything has to be detail oriented for me.
Sure.
And they definitely catch that.
Yeah. So another idea that I had, and I want to get your opinion on, I would love to do maybe quarterly, monthly, I don't know, just whenever there's a big dump of new trailers.
Yeah.
Just I thought that trailer trash talk where we watch all of the trailers and give you the highs, the lows. We pick apart cliches, where things look good or bad or whatever. So we give you our personal takes on what's coming. what we
Right.
think it looks like on the surface.
Based on what's out there that's being
Based on what's
pushed on us by some PR
Right.
people or whatever. But
Yes.
yeah, I get you. Yeah, I had that same idea, and it was going to be like the next 5 movies I wanted to watch based on trailers. But I like the idea of just discussing trailers that are out there currently.
Yeah. Because, well, and that's so, again, we grew up in a time where there was like, especially when cable started getting big, there were actual channels where it was just nothing but cycling through every half hour was the same trailers. So you could go watch all the trailers for what was out anytime you wanted. And I think that's, and then I still want to do some deep dive type stuff. So an idea that I've been bouncing around in my head is like, I call it the legacy files, but it's more like the rise and fall of Miramax and the Weinsteins.
Right.
Like, because so
why did something happen? Did something happen there?
Right. The
I'm not
Weinsteins,
familiar.
the Weinsteins started off as writers and producers on a cheesy 80s slasher flick, a knockoff of Friday the 13th called The Burning. It had Jason Alexander in it. It's fine for a cheesy 80s slasher, but that's where they started, and then they got so big that somehow Shakespeare in Love wins the Academy Award, and then 20 years later they're completely devastated. So those kind of things really interest me. And then
you just blew a whole episode. What are you doing?
I just did it. It was over. That's
a quick summation.
Why Spielberg, and then like an episode on why Spielberg matters.
Yeah.
Because we say it all the time that Steven Spielberg is probably the greatest director of our lives because he has this uncanny ability to balance high art with populist stories. Like he can tell a story that anyone can access, but do it in a highly artful way. And I think that's super important. And then to bring in the TV side of things, love Breaking Bad, love Better Call Saul. I'd love to look at the cultural impact of that world, the world of Walter White.
Is this just an excuse to start doing meth? Because I'm down. Let's do it.
Only if you dye it blue. It has to be blue.
I'll bring some food coloring.
But those are some of the ideas I'm thinking of. Do you have any others that
I think that's fantastic. I'd like to also, I'm a huge classic film fan. I watch a lot more classic films in the last 10 years of my life than probably new ones. I miss new movies because I'm watching older films, but
yes.
I'd like to give a reintroduction to people. I'd like to tell some sort of suggestion on some old director or some old film that is worth a look. If you like X, you would also like this, with some explanation, because one thing I found was what's missing from so many classic movies, Silent included, is context for people. They might not necessarily understand the context of why this movie matters. They might not understand why, if this was the first time some process or something was done, or the first time this was the High Sierra's car chase was mind-blowing to people at the time, because they didn't really had never really filmed anything so thorough before. And so, but if you watch it now, you're like, well, this isn't Fast and the Furious. Well, it's not trying to be, but there wouldn't be a Fast and the Furious had this not existed. The problem with my idea there, though, is that there are 1,000 different people talking about that who are way more educated than I am. But I can still make some suggestions on some worthy
I think
stuff.
We can also bring something that others can't, and that's our late 40s dad humor to the whole thing. Like you still bring a unique eye to everything. So no, but I totally agree, because like for me, it doesn't get much better than Billy Wilder. Again, Sunset Boulevard being probably my favorite movie, or a Frank Capra. Nobody did that quote unquote schmaltzy family picture in a way like Frank Capra did, or a King Vidor. I know you watched a bunch of King Vidor in the last couple of years.
I'm a huge King Vidor fan, especially his silent movies. And it's
Yeah.
weird that they're so hard to find, even though there's some
Yeah.
of the most
Oh, yeah.
well-known things out there.
Right. And I would love to get into some of those, like the early film actresses, the early vamps, the it girls and things, the Theta Bara and those.
Yeah,
Those
some
are
wicked stories of old classic Hollywood. Some weird stuff.
yeah.
But again, there's
Your
really
Fatty
pretty
Arbuckle.
good shows. Yeah, that's crazy. But speaking of Theta Bear, but like I think something as simple as like people don't understand Howard Hawks was the director back a million years ago. And if you don't want to try classic films, you don't realize that Howard Hawks is a director that is very similar to a comedy director now, even though the pacing might be slower. So I don't know, things like that. But you know, I think there's room for people to expand all their ideas. The other thing I had thought about is you and I, what we always do anyways, a lot of times it's over text messaging and everything else, is we always discuss what we've recently watched. So it could be like the movies last 5 movies we watch kind of a thing. You know, because we do that as it is anyways. And, you know, it's a way to, I think it helps me process what I've watched by having the discussion with you and see if it's as worthy or better than I thought it was, you know? So that's another one, you know?
Yeah, and speaking of, what have you been watching lately?
I watched Hot Stuff with Dom DeLuise.
That is not in my I didn't watch it in the last week, but yes, I recently watched that too. Huh? Funny that we were just on that one.
Having that whole discussion again. Let's see, what was the last thing I watched?
I'll tell you, the very last movie I watched was the new Disney Plus documentary, Not Just a Goof. It's a documentary on the 1994 Goofy movie.
Oh,
it wasn't a huge hit when it first came out, but it's had this huge impact on late Gen Z or late Gen X, early millennials. It's a touchstone movie to a whole generation now.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I'm just speaking from what the people in the documentary said, but apparently a lot of Black culture, they look at that as the first Black Disney movie because the music and the thematic elements were more of, it was the single parent home, the Tevin Campbell doing all of the hip hoppy R&B style songs, that it had more of that feel. So they actually were bought into a movie in a different way. It's a really interesting, it's a simple 90-minute little documentary, but it was actually kind of interesting. It was really interesting. I enjoyed it.
I didn't know any of that. I'm fascinated already.
Yeah.
So they're actually the last movie I watched was Hot Stuff, which is why it keeps popping in my head. But I finally watched a silent movie, Our Hospitality. It's a Buster Keaton movie, which I had never seen before, which is not his best movie. The General probably is his best movie, but there's some fantastic recreations of the first trains. I can't remember what they call it, the steam locomotive thing, and a chainless bicycle. Doesn't matter. That one's okay. But before that, I watched The Super. Do you remember this from 1991?
Joe Pesci?
Joe Pesci.
I remember
Joe
that.
Pesci is a slumlord.
Yeah. Forced to live in his own apartment.
Forced to live in his own apartment. And isn't allowed to fix it up or isn't allowed to do whatever. And his tenants hate him. He's a jerk. He's a slumlord. Yeah. And they're all living in this terrible, terrible place. And guess what? He has a change of heart. And he becomes a better person. Can you believe it? It's crazy, but
without the batteries not included, robots coming in to save the day.
In watching it, it's basically the same thing, except for if you watched it, you'd realize that I think he's doing a spot on Robert De Niro impression through the whole movie.
I have to watch it again.
I think it's because he doesn't know how to do, because I think it was 1991. So when was Home Alone? 1990?
Right before, just before.
Yeah. So like I think, and in Home Alone, he's not quite playing a character that's far away from his Mickey characters and things like that he did in the gangster movies, right? He's still a little bit of that criminal. So now he's doing high crime, silly, and I think he just does a Bob De Niro, which is it's vexing. Let me put it that way. But I did like the movie, and I liked it when I saw it as a kid, so I had to rewatch
remember
it.
enjoying it. I have not. I probably haven't seen it since '91.
Yeah, I hadn't either. That's why it's worth watching. You know, I mean, if you have nothing better to do on a rainy Saturday day. But it's if it depends if you don't like Joe Pesci, if you don't like Robert De Niro, or if you don't like people doing Robert De Niro impressions, you might not like it.
I like a good Robert De Niro impression.
Yeah, everybody does one. But it's pretty good. It's got, a lot of people who pop up in later stuff. So that was before Hot Stuff, basically, and the Buster Keaton movie, the last thing I watched.
I actually watched like 5 movies and started a TV show rewatch, but I watched another documentary called Time Warp, The Greatest Cult Films of All Time, Volume 1. It kind of highlights the mid to late 70s and the rise of the midnight movie, with huge focus on Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Can I throw out, not to interrupt you, there's another doc called Movies from Midnight to the Margins. Have you heard of that? It's another doc basically following the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's also insanely good. It starts as, what is it, El Toro? Is El Toro? Which they say is the first of the midnight showing films.
What is it?
It's not El Toro?
Alejandro Jodorowsky or something?
Yeah, I've never seen it, but it fits in that vein. I think you might have watched it or something, but
I think
it was the first of those midnight movies, and then it traces them all the way up through John Waters and Rocky Horror and all those kinds of things like that.
And all that.
But it's a really good doc too, by the way. Just if you're interested.
This one focuses really on that mid 70s, and it's the Rocky Horror Picture Show, the rise of John Waters and his quote unquote trash cinema.
Right.
And then I watched for the horror channel, I am doing this whole series on all of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. I finally watched all of them. I finally watched the last one.
The original is so good. The original is so good.
The original that
guy's nuts.
That is my favorite horror movie ever, because so much happens in your imagination. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Netflix reboot, like I can give it a one word review. Trash. It's awful. There's nothing redeeming about it. And then I watched 2 Joe Dante movies, because who doesn't love Joe Dante? I watched Matinee with John Goodman, the Cuban Missile Crisis, William Castle.
Who's the kid in that? Who's the kid of that? Was he in Erie, Indiana? Is that kid?
Well, he's one of the kids in it. Yeah, Omri Katz he's in it, from Erie, Indiana.
Yeah.
And then I watched the original 1978 Piranha.
Oh yeah, I didn't finish that, but it was on the other day, and I watched the first half of it.
And actually, Piranha the reason I watched that is because I was doom scrolling on the internet or YouTube or something, and I saw this really old Steven Spielberg clip talking about the movies that were inspired by Jaws, and he mentioned that Piranha was his favorite of those, the early Return knockoffs. So had to watch that. And then my TV show rewatch, I watched, I just finished watching this last week, the first season of MASH.
Oh.
Just doing a MASH rewatch. And this actually came up. We had a conversation.
MASH. I'm watching Cheers, so we are definitely old dads, because old dads, that is...
yeah. So, but the reason MASH came up, so a little behind the curtain, Dave and I were having a conversation about a week ago, and Chud 2, Bud the Chud, comes up.
Oh, you're talking about Garrett
Larry Linville.
Larry
Linville is in it. Not Garrett. Well, Garrett Graham, whole nother thing to go down.
Discuss Garrett Graham every day.
Right. Well, if you go down the Garrett Graham thing, I suggest going Phantom of the Paradise and doing a Brian De Palma
there you
run.
Go.
But,
there you go.
No, I noticed that Larry Linville was in it, who plays Major Burns, and now I'm like, oh god, I gotta watch MASH. So that's how that started.
MASH is a very good show. It's funny, as a kid, I didn't like the older episodes when I was young, but It's just
Yeah.
it's very, very well done. I like it, again, anything that breaks new ground or tries new things
Mhm.
and successfully does it.
I still to this day do prefer the Major Winchester, Colonel Potter, BJ Honeycutt episodes, the second half. I prefer those,
They're
but they
made
also
better.
they dealt with much deeper problems.
Right.
They were still going more, and not in a bad way, but they were going more slapstick, more humor early on.
Right.
But once they make that decision to have Radar announce that Blake's plane goes down and he dies,
What
there's a
happened?
right?
Why
There's a
is this the
dark
first time
thread.
hearing of this?
Dang it. Oh, sorry.
Spoiler alert. Hey,
Spoiler
listen, the
alert.
50-year rule. 50-year rule. If it's less than 50 years, you can't say anything. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think they changed the tone, but they kept, it says humor got smarter. Same basic people behind it. So I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. And something that I don't know why it just popped into my head, probably because you mentioned spaghetti westerns and Howard Hawks. I started to think, like, why does Quentin Tarantino hate John Ford so much?
Yeah. You think it's
like,
arrogance? And I don't mean Tarantino's, even though there's some of that there too.
Definitely.
Tarantino doesn't like Kubrick, so you know. But I think John Ford was a very self-assured filmmaker.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of statements out there about he's not only the best director or the best cameraman that's ever existed, but will always be the best that has ever existed. And I don't know. Hubris,
so you and I separately, but we both got to see Hateful Eight in 70 millimeter, right? You got to see it in 70 millimeter.
Yeah.
I went to the only theater in my area that had 70 millimeter, and I watched it. And I was immediately struck as I'm watching some of the sweeping shots, like, oh, that's very John Ford like. Like, I can see that in like The Searchers or whatever. Like, that's very obvious. And then I'm doing my rabbit hole, and I find an interview, and Steven Spielberg says, Quentin Tarantino says something to the effect of, yeah, people keep asking if I was inspired by John Ford, and no, I can learn how to hold a camera down low and aim it up just like anybody else. I didn't need John Ford to teach me. I'm like, holy crap, you hate that guy.
It's a good quote.
I didn't need John Ford to tell me that.
I think he's just opinionated, because I don't think I don't think he could negate John Ford's influence on films in general. But
my guess is it's a personality conflict.
Like I said, I think it's hubris.
Because John Ford was very much the misogynistic man in control, just like a John Huston and Howard Hawks. Even, like, it was a different world, and that is not Tarantino's world.
Yeah, slapping the girl on the ass and calling her toots and stuff like that. Yeah,
women have agency,
stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah,
and Tarantino gives women agency. They may not be the top star in his movie, but they do have Jackie Brown. They have control of their lives, their decisions, and
100%. In a modern filmmaking,
he gives them power. Yeah, and I can see that. But yeah, oh man. So yeah, that poor Tarantino hates John Ford, loves women's feet.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he likes to give women's feet agency, but I was trying to restrain myself a little bit. Hey, listen, we all got our thing, you know. We all got our thing.
I am not going to be the guy who what is
Yucks your yum?
I'm not going to kink shame.
Yeah,
it's not my place.
I like yuck your yum. Yeah, no. We all have our own things, so, you know.
We do.
You turn out the kind of quality films that he does, and I think, you know, you get a little bit of freedom. Yes. And surprisingly, he can do. Unless there's nothing, there's not the kind of controversy out there behind him that, you know, sometimes you would expect or hope not to see and stuff. So which is
and I guess Tarantino just has I say small, but relative, and I'm speaking relative to like a Weinstein or a Kevin Spacey, the car accident thing with Uma Thurman, where he pushed her to keep going rather than maybe stopping and getting her the medical attention needs.
But that's tearing
yes,
their relationship apart as much
yeah.
as anything else. But.
Right. Yeah. And I don't want to minimize that, but we're not getting those reports that he.
I think. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Can I jerk off on your feet?
As two straight white men, we should probably avoid anything in that. In our opinions on the Me Too or whatever. I don't think there's. No. I don't think we have anything. We I don't think it's.
I don't have anything. No. I only have things to lose in that battle.
Garrett Graham, Phantom of the Paradise,
exactly,
right?
Garrett.
I'm just kidding. Yes. You know, what else have you watched, Bell?
No. So Garrett Graham, every time I see his face, he reminds me of somebody else, and I can't figure out who it is. He's got because Garrett Graham has very unique eyes.
Yeah,
his eyes are very. You're seeing Garrett Graham when you see his eyes. Did you? Robin Hood, Prince of Men in Tights.
Yeah.
The guy who plays Blinken.
I can't picture him.
Mark Blankfield. Look up Mark Blankfield when you have a minute. He has a striking resemblance to Garrett Graham to my eyes.
Well, I always think, remember when Bob Zemeckis started, Bob Zemeckis, the Bobs, and used cars and those early films like...
Yeah.
I don't know. I just want to talk more about Garrett Graham. But anyways, what a solid movie. Have you seen Here, by the way?
I have not. I haven't.
The first time I saw a commercial, I said, that sounds like a bold method to try. Like, that sounds interesting. I want to see how this comes out. All those kind of things. And then the reviews weren't so good. And I was very upset by that. I haven't seen it yet. So
when I saw it, all I thought is, sounds like a good short film.
Yeah,
I do not like this anti-aging or de-aging effect where I don't know. I don't like it. There's something weird about it for my eyes.
That is true.
Soft.
Well, the whole Will Smith,
valley.
Will Smith one, Gemini Man. Is that what it was called? That one was somewhat disturbing, where it was his 50-year-old self and his 19-year-old self, both hanging out together. I think it's like anything else. When the technology comes out or the opportunity to use it comes out, and then you're making something to use that process specifically, I think it's lacking. But if it becomes another tool in your quiver that you can use to tell a story,
because Irishman,
Martin
Scorsese,
what's the Scorsese movie that's coming out right now? The other Nicholas Pileggi movie, the gangster movie with the two I can't remember what it's called, but basically you've de-aging both of them, and you're de-aging De Niro twice, right?
Yeah,
because he's basically playing both the roles, which is also very, very weird. Like, it's weird that De Niro, of all things, would pull an Eddie Murphy in the Clumps.
I want to be
thing,
Eddie.
It looks good. I don't know,
but yeah, I guess it's probably all in how it's done. But how come I can't see it?
I think it's, again, like I said, I think it's using the tool to further your story.
But not your story shouldn't be the tool.
I listened to a Tom Hanks interview, and as they were talking about that a little bit, and he talked about the amount of time that he doesn't have to spend in the makeup, because that's normally what they would do is you do 6 hours of your day in makeup doing this de-aging stuff that would come out fine. Mediocre, because you can't hide the eyes, but anyways, and so, or this computer that can kind of do it, and he said that freed us up to try other things on set and all the whatever else, which, I think it was using the tool, but I don't think it was, I think it was necessary to the story, which I think is what, in those situations, the wrong way for it to be used. It's the special effects thing. When CGI first came out, there were movies that were being made just so they could burn off a bunch of CGI characters and stuff, and I don't think those are any better than something else that is just using it because they don't want to. They're lacking the funding or the whatever to do practical.
Yeah, and for every Tron, there's 100 knockoffs that don't work. Tron highlighted the early computer graphics, but did it in a really fun, immersive kind of way. but then all of the copycats that came shortly after that didn't quite work. And as much as I love The Last Starfighter, it's really bad graphics. The CGI is terrible in Last Starfighter.
It's pretty bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Speaking of Eddie Murphy, you know what I watched was The Distinguished Gentleman. Have you seen that? From 1992. Apparently I'm on a 1990s
Thomas Jefferson,
movie.
He plays Thomas Jefferson something. And
his name's like Ray Thomas Jefferson is his middle name or something like that. But he runs as if he's the Thomas Jefferson, whatever it is. Yeah, he runs with his middle name because we can get elected on notoriety of his name alone for some other famous camp. But I have to tell you, I saw it. It's 1992, and I saw it when it was out in the theater, I believe. It was the first time I remember thinking like, oh, politics is effed up. Like, you know, because it was a comedic way of telling the story, but just the notion of how the actual Congress and all that stuff works, you're like, and I was a young kid, like 11, 12, I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is really fucked up. Like, is this really how this whole system works? That people are just talking each other into switching massive opinions on things that are going to affect millions of people? Like, I don't know. Anyways, that just popped in my head.
I remember enjoying it, it was maybe the first starring vehicle, at least, that wasn't rated R. Like, he had to tone back his humor a little bit for that movie.
He just kept going. He kept going until nobody cared anymore.
And then Pluto Nash. But in Pluto Nash, the $3 bill with Hillary Clinton on it.
I don't remember that. I only saw that once, and I only saw that movie once, and it was not. It did not. It did not hold my attention. Let me put it that way.
It was so bad that I didn't even try to watch Norbert.
Yeah, I did watch Norbert also, but again, didn't really hold my attention. You know.
Yeah, I want to. Speaking of Eddie Murphy, his whole renaissance. I want to see. Was it My Name Is Dolomite?
Oh, it's great. Yeah,
I haven't seen it yet.
It's great.
It's high on my list.
My wife and I routinely quote the same. There's a line in the movie about he's trying to make this movie and he's talking to all these people and they say you got to hire a black cinematographer, you have to hire a black crew, etc., and he doesn't really understand why, and he goes, because white people don't know how to shoot and light black people. They don't know how to light the color of their skin, and it's in the movie, and it's a great line.
Yeah.
So whenever I watch something and somebody is not being lit properly, especially a person of color, I think like, well, fuck, they don't know how to light that person. Like, what the hell? Like, what are you learning in film school, or what are you learning in your apprenticeship if you're not learning to light anything, all tones and colors of skin, for Christ's sake, you know?
Yeah.
Same thing with makeup. You can tell when it's a crew that knows how to work with the person of color or not. If the makeup's really bad, you think, well, this person wasn't properly trained, you know?
And speaking of Eddie Murphy again, though, that I just realized I love Steve Martin, Eddie Murphy, Steve Martin.
Bowfinger?
That movie's so freaking funny.
In the 90s, like 1999, right? That was a big year for these movies that was a great. It's funny. Terrible, but good. It's actually, I shouldn't. Steve Martin doesn't really have anything terrible in his catalog. He has some movies that are weaker, but I don't think there's much that's terrible.
I'm not a Cheaper by the Dozen Pink Panther fan, but
true. But I don't know if they're terrible.
No.
Pluto Nash is terrible. Sorry, Eddie. I know you're hearing me here, Eddie.
I know you're one of our biggest listeners, so I know you're hearing this.
But I think there's a little bit more, and I should say I've never seen Cheaper by the Dozen. I saw the original with Spencer Tracy, so I don't know if I'm much of a judge, but it doesn't look terrible.
I have 3 daughters that were of the right age when that came out, so I have seen it.
And all the Lindsay Lohan movies and all the Amanda Bynes movies. Yeah,
I did watch
that age group, right? Yeah,
it is absolutely. Oh, speaking of Lindsay Lohan, her and Jamie Lee Curtis coming back for a Freakier
Friday. So we had talked the other day about Julia Butters, who is the little girl from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yep.
And I said, she's in something now, and she looks totally different. She looks goth. I don't want to say goth. That's the wrong thing to say. But she looks like she's growing up into a woman, and dark lipstick and dark hair and all that stuff. And she's one of the mains in that, which is surprising. But if you look at her IMDb pick, you're like, good. I think she has the talent. I think she always has from the youngest age. And, we've discussed how that TV show she was on, which I do like that show. I liked everybody on it, actually, for the
American
kind of show
Housewife.
it is. American Housewife. It's not really something I would typically watch, but I watched a bunch of them.
Right. Yeah.
She's just happened to be the standout amongst a cast of really great people, and then Tarantino finds her.
She's in another movie that I haven't seen that really want to. She's in The Fablemans.
Oh,
Steven Spielberg quasi.
Yeah.
Quasi
You didn't see that?
biographical. I haven't watched it. So like you said, I miss a lot of new movies because I go down these rabbit holes where once I start on a director, an actor, I can't stop until I've completed the journey. And it's so frustrating.
Especially if there's somebody with a big catalog.
Yeah.
They're not all going to be 10 films, 10 and out like Tarantino or
Right.
12 and out like Kubrick or something. Some of them are going to be in their 40s and 50s. You're like, oh shit, I'm starting Francis Ford Coppola again. I'm only halfway through. I barely got through The Rain, people.
Francis Ford Coppola has 10 movies just between Godfather 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Like, they're, and I don't mean that in a negative way. There's so much going on, so many stories. So I love those. And then, so what do we think we want to do for our first official episode? This is our introduction. We're meeting the people. They're seeing our humor and our tangential talk. But what do we want to do for our first go around? What do we want to discuss?
I think we just kind of did we'd call it our last 5, right? So I think we need to basically follow a traditional format with a top 10 list of sorts.
Okay.
Basically devise a category, and then have discussions about it. So some of the difficulty in those is some movies we haven't seen, and then some movies it's been a while. So, it's hard to put the time together for those things. So maybe that's maybe it's more of a 2 together. Watch 2 at a time, have the discussion. We don't typically stay on track that well anyways, so that's
we are kind of all over the place.
That's kind of my thought, but I do like the idea of also the trailers, discussion of trailers and things that have come out or things that are upcoming. I like the idea of seeing a trailer for something and knowing like that looks good, but we're also savvy enough that we see the trailer and we can see through the team who was hired specifically to make that trailer look good to you, because sometimes and you can also tell if they only have 1 or 2 trailers and using the same stuff in every one.
The same things over
They're like,
and over
they have nothing. There's nothing in this movie that they can save it with.
I don't remember what I was watching, but I don't know. I was watching something and they were talking about how they used to film scenes specifically for the trailer. They were never going to be a part of the movie. They were just for the trailer.
Yeah.
Now everything in the trailer is in the movie.
It's a whole different production company. It used to be that you would have your editor and your director trying to help pop together something else and maybe have a little bit of executive involvement or whoever's putting the money up.
Yeah.
But now they're like, no, we're going to hire a firm who's going to take your movie and they're going to figure out how to market it and sell it. But the problem with that is that might not be what the movie's about. They might market the movie because they're like, oh, kids love romantic comedies right now. And you're like, but this is the fucking Matrix. The Matrix is not a romantic comedy. You know what I mean? But they're going to try to figure out how to do it that way and changing some music and all those kind of things.
There was a movie in the early 90s that suffered from that. It was a Penny Marshall movie with Danny DeVito, Renaissance Man.
I liked that movie.
So Renaissance Man died on the vine because so I did not realize that it had been done up and trailers and released for like a month as a straight up drama. That's how it was positioned to the world, and it bombed and it was disappeared. Somebody liked it in the somebody liked it enough that they recut the trailer and then positioned it as a comedy, and then it took off a little bit. It still was a bomb in the end, but but it's very true. When you get someone who's not involved in the movie and doesn't understand the intent, you lose a lot.
Especially because they're not going to watch the whole movie. They're going to skim through it. They're going to get some highlights of it. Those highlights. Yeah, exactly. That movie, it also fits in that dramedy category, that movie. Because there's,
very much does. So,
but he's disconnected from his daughter. There's Marky Mark.
Young Marky Mark.
A ton of people in that movie, but it's people who have trouble learning, whatever else. And so I think
the slow kids in the military.
Yeah, in the military. But it's a good movie, and it's funny, But
I enjoyed it when I saw it, but then I learned much later. I learned about.
I would love to watch those two trailers side by side. Watch the trailer, the first one and the second cut. Just because I'd like to see the difference in how each one is presented. But that's exactly what I'm saying. Is they are just trying to get you in the door, even if you're not happy. Yep. And a lot of times they're going to market the hell out of something because they want to get everybody in the theater in the first week, because they know then people will realize it's not great or not worth their time. Right. And then they're going to lose their audience. Yeah. And so they're going to
when that movie came out, they had such a name at that time. Penny Marshall is your director. Danny DeVito, I think, wasn't as big as he was before or is now, but it's Penny Marshall. She's coming off of big awakenings. Like she's got, and maybe even right after, it was either right after or right before A League of Their Own.
I think it was right after. Yeah.
So she was something, and they just still couldn't figure out how to market the movie. So I'll see if I can find both of those trailers when talk about.
To be fair, I did see Renaissance Man in the theater, but I saw a lot of movies in the theater, so I might not know what it was. I just walked into a theater. Like I said, avid film fan, and
right. And I think for me, that is why I watched it, because I wasn't the kid who needed to watch trailers to know if I wanted to see a movie. I knew that this guy makes me laugh. I want to see that movie, or there's this thing that I'm into, so I want to see that movie. I mean, that's why I like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Intellectually, I know it's a terrible freaking movie.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Yeah.
It got me at, I don't know, 1992, 12, 13 years old or something.
At the right age.
It hit me at a time in my life.
Jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It hit me at a time in my life where it was important. Anyways. All right, so
I think we got to wrap this thing up, man.
We do kind of.
I don't know about you. You got some personal things,
life coming up. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up this very first episode of the new Real Talk. Dave and I just want to thank you for hanging out with us as we kick off this new adventure. And we're just getting started here. We got a lot of great stuff lined up for you. Reviews, deep dives,
tangents, long tangents, meandering.
Occasional hot takes.
Yep.
You name it. We're going to have all of it for you. And if you like what you've heard or just want to tell us why we're wrong, we are on social media at Real Talk on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. You can also email us, because we're old school, and that's probably our preferred method, at therealrealtalk@gmail.com.
Call me on my dial-up phone. My old school rotary phone.
I was going to say, Dave has a rotary phone still. It's true. And then check us out. We'll be posting bonus content, episode notes, and full reviews of any of the movies we talk about. And hey, don't forget to rate and review us wherever you get podcasts. Seriously, though, that really helps us out. They say that it doesn't help the algorithm anymore, but it really boosts our ego and makes us happy about what we're doing. So it really means a lot. So whether you're a lifelong movie buff or just here for our tangents, we're glad you're a part of this little film-loving corner of the internet.
Now kick back, grab some popcorn,
and go watch a movie.
Thanks, all.
Underneath the sun's green, 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 talking reels and all their schemes. Dusty scenes and dreams unfold, stories told in shadows bold. Gritty plots and whispers tight, dim the streets and moonlight bright. We dissect the cinematic art, real by real we pull apart. The real talk where voices play with velvet words and starlit sway, reviewing tales both light and dark, classic films that leave a mark. Dive deep